have a big panel this morning. The whales of the industry, or one former whale turned dolphin now, so to speak. I am assuming that most of you will know these gentlemen already, and if you don't know them, you will know them when you hear their names and the company, so I don't think we should waste too much time with the introductions. Here, right to my left, is Florian Müller, who is the Chief Business Officer for Travian Games. This is Klaas Kersting. He was one of the founders of Gameforge, and he's now running a startup company called Flaregames in the mobile business. Carsten van Husen is the CEO of Gameforge 4D, the client-based division of Gameforge. Dr. Pascal van Zuta, it's just Pascal Zuta, I'm sorry, from Aeria Games. Also a very big company. Maybe for you here in Germany, not such a household name, very big in Japan and the US. Coming up everywhere else. And of course, Heiko Hubertz. Is it still CEO of Bigpoint, Heiko?
Until the end of the year, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Until the end, so still the CEO and of course, founder of Bigpoint. Would you like to say a few words? I guess everybody is dying to know what on earth happened. Can you get that out of the way?
I think we talk in an entire panel today about that, what happened with us and with the industry. We just expected a much higher growth in our company for this year than we really had. So, you know, if you double your revenues from year to year and suddenly you don't double your revenue anymore, but you build the cost structure for doubling your revenues, you have to reduce your costs. And that's exactly what happened. You know, it's a shame for the employees who lost their jobs, but at the end we had to protect the jobs of the others, and for that reason we made this very tough decision to lay off around 120 employees.
Okay, and I think the public statement was that you leaving the CEO position was just a coincidence, but a very weird one, I should say. Maybe a PR blunder, one could...
No, we just didn't want to announce, you know, a couple of weeks later, another maybe bad message with me leaving the company. The people who know me for a little bit longer know that I already wanted to leave the company last year. We hired a CEO last year. Unfortunately, this didn't work out, and for that reason, I said, okay, then I stay for a little bit longer in the company. But we started already beginning of the year a process to look for a new CEO, and now we found someone who will announce by the end of the year, beginning next year.
Okay. Well, obviously, the going-ons at Bigforge, we see a lot of restructuring at other companies too. Travian has done a lot of restructuring internally. Gameforge has been through that process, or maybe still is in it. So there's a lot of talk about the industry being in crisis, or at least the German part of it, which was once leading the pack. So obviously, my first question to you, gentlemen, is there a crisis in the browser game space? And just for the entire panel, if you feel that you want to contribute, just, you know, go ahead and talk.
And punch you right into the face, or for example.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Anybody? Are we in a state of crisis? Is the browser games industry in a state of crisis?
As Heiko said, coming from where we are with the growth rates that we all have come to know, that is worse than before, that's for sure. If you compare it with other segments of electronic gaming or even a wider economy, obviously I do think margins are still very reputable, and so are the revenues. So it is not as easy all the way downhill as it was, that's true.
I actually have to say, and sometimes I'm kind of playing the devil's advocate here, I feel that sometimes we're kind of wrapping ourselves up in discussions that may not be completely honest to the last point. And I feel that last year we were all like explosive growth, everything is doing well, and I already thought, I'm not sure if everybody's really growing that much. This year, I know that some companies are going down in revenues, are not profitable anymore, and I think that this was hard to do just a couple of months or a couple of years back, right? Because everything was just driven by this huge business model revolution that we have seen, free to play, you know, and there was this huge market, retail, and we were like, hey, our game is free to play. Everybody would run there, and you would suddenly have, you know, nice revenues coming to your game, and this is over. And the business model revolution is over, and that's something that we have to face. And also, I think that, I mean, now we're here, and most of the important players of this industry, or some of them are actually here. That's a cool thing. And I think we should be honest and say, hey, there are things we need to change, right? Because the way that we've done it in the last 3 years will not continue. And it's not only about, you know, it's not doubling anymore. I think Aeria Games is one of the only companies that's still even hiring, but we're not hiring as much as we've been last year. We'll not be doubling our revenues, and it's far away from that for this year. And I think for the other companies, it's actually the same. So that's just what I wanted to put out here. And I think now we have to think about strategies. What is next, right? And I think you had a very interesting interview with games industry, I think it was, where you were talking about what do we have to do in a world where competition is going up, right? Where we have to diversify ourselves and say, hey, this is why you should come and play Bigpoint's game. This is why you should come and play Aeria games. And this is something where we have to think about and where we have to really, show that we don't only do kind of the right things as we did in the past by just bringing out free-to-play games, that we also can do the things really right in an effective and in an efficient way. I think that's new to the business.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. To be honest, to yourself and to the industry, I think it's really, really critical. And I'm pretty sure that, I think I'm saying that already for a couple of months, that we are in a consolidation phase at the moment. And that's normal for every industry who has really hyper growth, very profitable companies. Many other companies want to go into this business, and that's exactly what happened in the last years. And now there's just, I think there's still growth in the market, but there are just more competitors now who share this big cake.
Super profits will always attract others.
Yes,
which we have
exactly.
seen. Luckily, the majors gave us the time, the EAs, the Ubisofts, to grow and prosper for a pretty long time, although they have been committing in words to that concept of digital and free-to-play and online. But yeah, that's why we have been able, you guys have been able to grow these companies to the degree as they grew. But as they're coming in, because we are successful, obviously it's getting more crowded, and so do the Asians. I mean, as long as they only send their expats here, we are normally not very afraid. But once they really ring up with their talent executive search guys, all of our telephones, yeah, one must admit that Tencent has deep pockets, and so do others with their billions of dollars of valuation. So it is becoming more crowded, and that indeed means that launching new titles is freaking more difficult and more expensive to make it successful than ever before. And also to yet give, so to speak, another bad thing to admit that, yeah, the cash cows with all of us are sitting in those games which were launched quite a bit ago. And luckily, there are still successful launches, but much less frequent than they were in the past. So.
It's actually a great point, and I wanted to address that specifically, but I would like to hear Klaas first. You're a little bit on the outside looking in. You're still part of the same industry space, but you were part of the big Gameforge company. Now you're this small, agile, little startup company. If you look at that, I mean, what's your take on the whole situation? Why does it seem like that companies like Bigpoint are maybe not as in as great a shape as they were before?
Well, my impression of the whole discussion is that we have to take a step back to kind of look a little bit more diversified in it. Everybody talks about the industry being in crisis and mixing up all the different industries that actually make up our industry. The best picture I've found so far to kind of visualize it is like a big motorway, right? The big giants, EA, Ubisoft, etc., being the trucks on the right lane. And then someday, Bigpoint and Gameforge and all those companies came up on the second lane, and they were, whoa, way faster. And they were there, they were driving fast, and then it was like, whoa, what's Zynga? on the next lane, and it was pretty amazing. This whole, I haven't found a better word yet, social games. I don't like to call them like that, but pretty much the industry phrase. And that's a totally different thing, and it was another revolution. And now Zynga is like, whoa, mobile, who would have thought about that? And that's something they miss totally. And that's basically a problem every industry has every now and then. There are revolutions, and the gaming industry is lucky and plagued by having a lot of those in a very short amount of time.
And you're the motorbike, crisscrossing all lanes, right? Because it's not
trying
necessarily
to.
the fourth lane. Yeah. Cool.
I'm not there yet, but yes. And if you are sitting on a great business model, on successful titles, if you are used to significant growth, you miss opportunities. And all of the companies in the market did exactly that. And my respect on that actually goes to Electronic Arts, who really at least strategically, figured out all the lanes. Did around 90 million in mobile revenue alone last quarter. That's pretty respectable, although they are still burning money like crazy on it. But they can afford it because they have the brands and the cash cows that bring the money in. So I think it's just sitting on something that is very successful and that is growing makes you a little bit saturated, and you miss opportunities. You don't have to learn to be efficient, because it's always about growing more, growing more, growing more. And then things changes. Acquisition prices rises, the prices of licensing content rise, the production value rises, and so the development costs. And suddenly you have to be efficient where there was before a surplus of any resource besides great talent. That's why everybody hires like crazy.
I think that's exactly what happened probably at Bigpoint, Gameforge, and also at Travian Games right now, because we come from high revenues, we come from growth, but now we face that there are limits, and we now know that we also have to take a look at the cost side, that we need to be more flexible again in the future, that we need to be more efficient, that we need to empower our teams, that we need to be open for new ideas, and to get rid of this mentality that sometimes really blocks us from doing the next step towards evolving markets.
Let's talk a little bit in detail about some of those issues that you're facing, or those challenges that you're facing. And Carsten already mentioned that it's just getting harder, and it's more costly to launch new titles. And I think a lot of the companies have the problem that they are still sitting on those old cash cows that, thankfully, are still giving a lot of milk, but they fail to launch these new, really big products. And I think, obviously, Travian, no offense, is a prime example of that. You still have the game that named your company, but besides that, I think the only successes you have were not self-developed, but you bought companies or developers.
At Travian Games, we had to come along with a certain development. We came from being a one-product company, and our focus was to make this a multi-product company. So that's why I invested a lot of money during the last years, and we are now about to launch several titles. So hopefully the market accepts them and likes them. But that's also one of the reasons why we are kind of late in things that Klaas, for example, does with the mobile sector. All the new games, they will come with mobile-ready technical background and all these things. So, of course, we did our homework there. But that's why we're not that fast, and that's why we're not that flexible. We had to focus on other things first. But, of course, it's a risk, because you could be too late then.
Talk a little bit about the learnings in the past. I mean, you have tried to launch new products, not to great success. What went wrong there?
I think that has to do with the free-to-play gaming, because we do not launch titles if we're not really happy and satisfied with their quality. And we think that we need to convince people from the game mechanics themselves. So we launch titles. We saw that, okay, that's not ready for the market, because people told us it's not fun, they're leaving too early, we have increasing marketing costs, so we need to react. So that's why we put them back again, and we are now launching 6 to 7, maybe also 8 games within the next 4 months, so they will come. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Heiko? Bigpoint is one of the companies that is known for having that huge portfolio. You used to churn out games all over the place, and obviously some of them were successful and many others were not. With rising production costs, that's probably not a model you can take into the future.
Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly what we now change in our business strategy, going for less products, but with higher quality and more investments. I still remember that we announced Poisonville as a very expensive development, 1 whatever million we spent for that. If I would develop a game for just $1 million or even maybe less than $2 million, then I would have a problem at the moment. So the focus in our company is really on core games, high quality development cycles of 12, 18, 24 months. So we're going to launch one game. We acquired a company, 49er Games, last year, and we're going to launch this game summer next year. 2 years ago, this was unbelievable for us to buy a company, and 2 years later we launch a game, which we started to develop. So and this is what we now do, investing in quality, but still browser games. We still believe that there's a market, we still believe in growth, we still believe after the consolidation that there is a huge market and a profitable market. But for the moment, it's just about quality and investing in that. And that's also one of the reasons why we laid off people, to have a possibility to still invest in those things. So because we need this money, because we don't want to go in the direction that we are not profitable anymore.
Okay.
If I may add something to that,
please.
I think that it's great to hear that all of you guys are like downsizing, being more rational about your business and adjusting the estimations very, very quickly, because that's important. Because otherwise, companies would go out of business, would really be bad. But it's not only about consolidating internally and cutting costs. I think it's very important that we think about it on an innovative scale a bit more. And I don't think that only having better games is it. I think we have to have innovative products that drive our growth of the industry. And I want to open up that discussion away from only games to innovative businesses. Like, for example, your Game of Thrones IP that you say, hey, we know high acquisition cost. Our way is we take a game that comes with the community built in, right? Because Game of Thrones is like such a big brand, so everybody will jump on it. So this is a strategy. This is innovative. This changes the game itself and the game as a business. Then there is other people that are trying in other ways where we say, hey, there could also be innovative products around user acquisition. So, for example, I would name Steam in that respect, right? This is a product that delivers massive value to its users, that has aggregated a huge base of users there. And it's not only Steam, it's EA's Origin, and Aeria has a software that's called Ignite, where we're also distributing third-party titles like Tribes Ascent through that. So, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to capture user streams, and we're trying to bring them to wherever we think they make most sense in our portfolio. So what I wanted to say is that we're not only talking about new games and new formats like mobile cross-platform. I think there is more to it. There's more to it, like a business model innovation side, which would be like the Game of Thrones IP, bringing that to our industry, or like a Steam. And I think this is very important that we open up ourselves a little bit for that and try to look more into these products that surround our games.
In terms of focusing on higher quality products, I mean, obviously that brings additional risk with it. The single product becomes much more important, and if it fails, it means a much greater loss for you.
Everyone who is in this business knows how much money we spend for marketing. So and that's also one of the changes we have done here. Don't invest that much in buying user, build a good product, innovative product, high quality, and then the user comes from alone. Maybe not everyone, but you don't have to do these huge investments. We have spent more money every month in marketing than we spend in R&D or especially in development, creating products. So that's what we changed totally. Now we spend around the double of our marketing spendings just for product. And that's also one of the strategy changes you have to do. And then the risk is more balanced. So you don't have a high marketing spending and a high development cost. You have the same cost structure, but going in a different direction.
Okay.
That's totally right. I mean, you have to think of new marketing strategies. And if you talk about cross-platform and mobile, etc., you have to develop strategies there. I haven't seen one that is really superior to any other. And that is a big, big challenge. On the product side, I mean, definitely you should be visionary in a certain way. But I think we have reached also a state where we say, we have to be focused as well, and we have to be careful with our investments. Because with diminishing profitability which we face, we really have to think double, where do we put the next dollar in?
I'm tempted to slightly disagree with some of the notions, not fully, so I still believe it's the game stupid and not the marketing. And what is there to expect as innovation in marketing? Luckily, our BizDev people are constantly running around snatching up the latest distribution deal with a new platform which has sprung up here and there. So I wouldn't necessarily imagine that this will really be a significant contributor to a great next upturn. But at Gameforge, we do indeed also, since a while, focus on not bringing up more titles, but hopefully the best quality titles that we can get our hands on, so to speak. And on the client-specific MMO side, with launching this year MMOs of Ion, Free-to-Play, and Terra, that is indeed fully, as Heiko said, much more risky than before. When we did start to bring up one of our cash cows, Metin 2, 6 years ago, we first had the revenues and then we grew the team to a dedicated size of 85 people or so. Now with an eye on free-to-play, we first had to work half a year, recruit 45 people dedicated to that to realize the concept before the first cent came ever in. That is, of course, more risky than before, yet we believe this is the way to tackle the challenges of the industry, at least if you have a certain size. I fully believe that there will be very profitable niches all over the place, but that may be not exactly the right strategy to go for a company of our size. So then you rather say, let's put up some risk and try to take reasonable good shots at those quality titles.
What's the situation in these other companies here? How do you also spend twice as much on marketing than you do on development, like Bigpoint did?
We?
Yeah.
We are a publisher, so we license, right? The license has definitely gotten much more expensive, that's for sure. But still, our risk position as a publisher is, I guess, much lower than it is as a developer. Also, you know, once something goes really well, we have to pay a lot of money to our developers, which decreases the business potential as a whole, right? So that's always these two sides, risk versus benefit. But I do see that the cost has increased in licensing. It has mostly increased, I think, because there's more people that are willing to spend more money. Gameforge is spending a lot, Aeria is spending a lot, Gamigos is not spending so much anymore.
It's the same thing. They don't let us go away over a long period of time with our free lunches. Also, these East Asians, they have figured that there's revenue to be made with their games over here. So we cannot no longer tell them, okay, you know, otherwise you wouldn't have European revenues. And when you did your initial spreadsheets on your business planning, you didn't actually account for European revenues. So, well, what the heck, come on, I'll do it for you. So then that's over. No.
Yes, that's over. But I still believe that the problem that we face here is not on the licensing cost side. This is not significant or relevant enough for none of the companies here. If we're paying now 500,000 or 2 million for a European
So
license,
to interrupt again, we're also paying more nowadays because it is irrelevant and because we understand that it is irrelevant.
Yes, probably we would have been fighting harder for lower prices like 5 years ago. But what we cannot oppose is the higher cost in marketing. That's the only thing. That's quenching us. And it's also because I think that some of our competitors don't understand their return on investment, which is really ridiculous. Because we're looking at some people. Sometimes I hire marketing people, and I hire them from other companies, and I ask them, so what are you paying for a player? And they come up with values where I am 100% sure that this is never going to be a profitable investment. So you're asking yourselves, why are our competitors doing that? And I have to say that actually in this round, you guys are okay, I think, right? But there are some others.
But the others,
the others. The others are some subsidiaries or so that are a little bit more aggressive. And I wonder, how can that be? And it's bad for our industry, because I think that some of these companies will, or have actually, gone out of market.
Shouldn't we say nobody bids more than 10 euro cents per CPO?
Let's just agree.
Until next year, and then let's see.
So this is the one thing. So people don't just pay too much, and that's bad for the industry. That's also bad for us, right? Because we're kind of bleeding out by all of this. And if nobody's making any money more in this business, because there are some people that are overpaying and that just have like the power to do it, then I think we'll suffer all as an industry.
Just for a second there, guys, maybe we should just establish that for everybody in the audience. I'm not sure everybody is familiar with the marketing cost dilemma. As far as I understand it, in the past, you would spend 10,000 euros, you would get 20,000 users, you make 40,000 euros out of them, and you were like, hey, printing money. And after all these companies entered the market, now advertising costs have gone up, and now you can buy 10,000 users for 20,000 euros, and you only get 5,000 back. Is that about it?
Almost.
In completely fictional numbers?
Yeah, but I think the situation what we see here is, first of all, there's a lot of venture capital in this market, private equity, and the big players go into the market. And for them, it's about market share. They want to get into this market. They don't care. Maybe they even know their metrics, and they know that these are unprofitable campaigns, but they just want to get the users. They think maybe about CRM long-term or whatever, but in general, it's about market share. And that's what we just see in the consolidation. And that's the reason I'm saying saying, okay, for the next maybe 12 months, we see the situation. A couple of companies will get out of business, and some others will be maybe bigger than they are today. That's just the situation. We have to deal with that, and we have to find strategies to fix that. But just buying users, and that's what I try to explain with our strategy, is not the solution. So let's invest more in quality and products and brands and something like that. Innovation, that's how you get out of that. If you just try to compete with that, to pay the higher price per user, you will lose for sure. Maybe if you're a Zynga and you have $1 billion on your bank account, maybe you can do that. But none of these companies has $1 billion on the bank account, I guess.
Exactly.
I mean,
that is
You, okay.
They're private one. Not to confuse.
That's the strategies we really need to develop. And it's not only our industry that increases marketing costs. If you take a look at all the other industries, I mean, the overall online marketing budget was less than 10% like 2 years ago. Now those companies like Mercedes and all over the world, they're investing in online marketing. And the space is somehow limited because we have relevant websites where the users can be found. And they also increase our prices. So we need to develop several strategies on the marketing side, on the product side, also on an innovative side, definitely, was the next slice that we can get from the cake. So that's what we have to do.
Can you put numbers on that for me, real numbers? What did you used to pay for a user? What do you have to pay these days?
I think that really depends from game to game and the channel you use and so on. But in general, what
percentages then?
Yeah, no, but just give you a number. What we always calculate, say, we pay €1 in a country like Germany per user, maybe a year, 2 years ago. Today I pay €3 and even more per user. Again, it depends on the genre, on the channel, and so on. But what we calculate internally is that the price has tripled over the last maybe 12 months.
Okay.
And you actually see similar stuff in the mobile industry right now. I mean, there were some successful companies. Money is pouring in like crazy. All the VCs invest and invest and invest, and then it's just about kind of top-line growth, right? And the really big guys, Bree, DNA, when they launch a new title, they pay around $8 to $9 for a download on an iOS device. That's crazy. They will never make it back. And it's just scrunching everybody else out of the market. And a lot of companies will not survive that. And that's the same in the browser games genre. That's the same in the MMO genre.
Yes, what you said before is very interesting. You say, hey, there is not only the online games market, right? There's Facebook or social, there's mobile, there's browser, there's client, and all this stuff. And actually, you see history repeating, right? I mean, like 2 years ago, when Evony went into the market, I remember in the US, they had, like for 2 months or so, they paid $10 per registration. It was just completely weird, and because everybody was paying $1, and then they came in and said, we pay 10. And why do they do that? Because they can. Because they don't care, and because they just want to be aggressive and get us out of the market. And it's very easy in such times to go out of market, but it's very, very hard to actually be successful, right? And so the same thing happened with Facebook just a couple of months actually later, right? When everybody said, hey, we want to be big on Facebook, all the investors were driving us and saying, hey, you guys, you got to be successful on Facebook, right? So everybody goes in there and they spend up to what they think they can spend, probably a little bit higher than that, right? And you see a lot of companies going out of business and just very few being successful. And the same is happening now in mobile, where you, again, all the investors are go and say, hey, mobile is such an awesome place to be, you got to be there, you got to grow. We go in, we spend our money, let's see whether this is going to be a profitable investment for everybody, right?
Usually when it's
again, where you have to develop your strategy and say, okay, this is mobile business, I need to be there, and how can I do it without having big danger of going out of business because I'm just overspending with all of these guys that come in there with their very deep pockets.
Usually when a VC tells you to go somewhere, he's already 2 years late, but...
That's true.
So do you guys have any concrete strategies? What are you doing to address this?
Let me talk about our mobile strategy, for example, right? We've started mobile just in the summer, and we're a publisher, right? We tried to do own development, but we're just not good at this, and I think our DNA is just not probably as much as you guys are, now pointing at Florian, Klaas, Heiko, you guys are real product people, you as well. We're not that, we're publishers, we're interested in operating efficiently, we're interested in low acquisition cost and platforms and all of these things. And so we looked at mobile and we said, hey, how can we do that? And we said, hey, let's replicate what we're doing on the client game side. So we're licensing from Asia, and we're trying to get games that have a very high monetization potential, as we have with Shaya, for example, our big cash cow that we have that is still generating like $2 per daily user. So there's really, like massive amounts of money from hardcore spenders. We're doing the same. We looked at the market and we said, here's one profitable niche that we think that we can own, or we can try at least. And that's card trading games, right? And we said, hey, card trading games, they're very successful in Japan at the moment, not so much in Korea, but we know that we have strong ties to Japan anyway. So we used our contacts, traveled there a lot of times, and tried to find like very, very good games that are monetizing really well. And we took them, localized them, did a little bit more effort than we do with client games, changed some mechanics, but tried to leave the game, like it is, because we knew that it worked in Japan. Brought it out here, and actually in France, it's now running very successfully. We're in the top 10 top grossing for like the last 4 weeks, and we're generating $2 per daily active users in a peak, which is massive. So this is a strategy, I think, right? You say, there's a niche. I think it can work. If we monetize really high, then we can also pay the high acquisition cost that we see in the market at the moment. This is how we did it. How far will that bring us if we're concentrating on niches, right? Will that ever get us to like EA's success with The Simpsons? Probably not. But will it be a good strategy to get a foothold and decrease the risk of going out of business? I guess so.
We at Gameforge, I try to be a little bit shorter, but it's also a complex question to answer about one's strategy. So I need a few sentences as well. Traditionally, we have these two things where Klaas and Alex did self-develop and publish the web games, browser games, and then I joined them and we licensed in these Asians initially, now of course Americans as well, client-based MMOs. So both of that, client download is no longer so different anymore. We have all sorts of technologies which abolish the download, but yet we still consider it as two different sub-segments for which we obviously need to have a bit of a different strategy. And on the MMO client side at the moment, so to speak, that will always be there with great games which require local PCs, graphic cards to run a fantastic thing. These will always grow to be the software a fantastic thing, and we are trying, as I said before, to get a few shots at high quality on that one because we believe that has a potential to stick out of the general mass of titles. Whereas on the web games, which we are continuing to self-develop also with third-party developers, we're happy to talk to you again, one could say. So these ones, of course, need to have some multi-access cross-platform features inbred very clearly. So beginning of this year, we made the tablet our core platform for development, and are obviously only bringing out titles who will be catering for all of that, because just PC online in the web standalone won't have any future. And in order to learn a bit how marketing goes, we have brought out some, should I say, stupid titles to experiment on how that works. And also in parallel, we're working on companion apps for the old cash cows so that they can also be, in a certain limited way, be accessed on tablets or even smartphones.
At Travian Games, we see the chance that we do have genres and types of games that have a good match with mobile. So the strategy definitely is that we want to focus on the product itself and to make it more accessible to the player. Do we produce mobile games or develop mobile games just like a very small studio could do? No, actually we don't. We will, of course, try certain things out with our new mobile team that we set up. But I think we want to focus more on the products that we have and want to increase the value of our customers. And I also want to mention that the whole cross-platform thing, I do not believe that we should make cross-platform games just because of cross-platform possibilities. We should make cross-platform games because they can be appreciated and valued by our customers. So if we focus on that, I think we are doing the right things. If we're just doing it because we can, technologically wise, I think that is a mistake.
You're completely right. Sorry, very, very quick. I forgot maybe to stress that, yes, we will stick to what we have done as well, but simply our kind of web games, the O-games and Icariums, they no longer will be able to survive if you would not allow the mobile platforms in. Sure. But yes, it must be as a service, long tail, and we're not in for selling apps short time, one-off.
Just make it very short. What we are doing is we just focus on businesses where no one else is in, or it doesn't make sense to bring it to different platforms. So, for example, what we do is we focus really on core games in the browser. Because to play a core game on an iPhone, you know, it works. There are some games who really will work on the iPhone, but there's not really a big market. Core games that people like to play on the PC, you know, they like to get a lot of options and so on and so on. So we want to really focus on core games in the browser, and for everything else, we want to do really innovative things. Or we do things where we really have a USP, like choosing an IP. Like Pascal already mentioned, the Game of Thrones IP. You know, no one else can have this IP, so let's go for that. Or we do something very innovative, like we do with Game Globe and Square Enix together. You know, something where no one else is in. Of course, this is risky, but at least there's something where we have a chance to grow faster than everyone else.
IP spin-offs, for example, can be very interesting. Even if you've got games that maybe do not match perfectly as a whole the smartphone device or the tablet device, but you could, of course, use your IP and do something with it and just increase the awareness of this brand. Yeah? That has several advantages for you.
We basically focus. It's mid to hardcore players, it's mobile platforms, tablet as a first platform, actually. And yeah, we are a small company. We have to try things out. We tried a few things out. We learned a lot. We did a lot of things right, but
there will be a talk later.
More wrong. There will be a talk later. Yeah. Yeah. But I think now we got a machine running. We will have like 8 new titles out over the next 6 months, and I really expect a lot from that.
Okay. There was a lot of talk about quality, so it seems that everybody agrees that the quality bar has been raised. But who's going to develop those higher quality titles? Do you even have the development teams that can do that?
We work with a lot of external studios, more and more. So Battlestar Galactica was one of the first successes we had of an external studio. The acquisition of a Raiden Labs studio who are doing now Dragon's Den was exactly the right decision. Acquiring the 49er studios, doing now, you know, with this 2-year project, which are going to launch summer next year. This is what we do. I think just hiring, that's what I've learned with Bigpoint. Hire a team and let them build a game. They need at least 1 or 2 games to make one successful game, because you have to find the weaknesses, the strengths in the team, and so on. That takes time and costs money. So let's go for teams who are really expert in their genres. So if we want to do a racing game, we want to choose the best racing game studio instead of just hiring some racing freaks in our company and hope that they develop something great. That's our strategy, how we do games in the future.
Also ourselves, we are looking more out now for professional teams to come up with that quality that is on the web cross-platform space and on the client side, which we never developed ourselves. Also traditionally, of course, we will continue doing that, and we are very happy that our American friends have woken up to the trend, which they are finally embracing themselves. Because yes, continuing to take in all these Asian developed things will not have the best game design for our audience in the long run. That's true.
Same for us. I mean, we're only developing, same number of games internally, maybe 1 less, and we focused, being a multi-game company, on external studios, on subsidiaries that we acquired, where we said we have a long-term partnership with them. Because I think that the first game, as you mentioned, Heiko, the first game that you're doing with the studio, that's hard work. The second, the third, if you see that it matches and that you kind of found the processes that can really drive your business, then you're fine. Yeah, and that's the strategy behind it.
Okay. Do you sometimes, I mean, do you plan to keep up internal development? Are you doing anything there to increase quality?
Internally?
Yeah.
I think it's about the culture of a company and the people that you're hiring. Give them room for creative processes and look at them and try to find out if they're really passionate for what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a cultural thing that we have at Travian Games. We've always tried to produce really good games. We have waited long to launch games because we wanted to offer something that is worth also the money, because when we're going open beta, we're asking for money from our customers. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Okay. Let's look into the future. Let's look into the future maybe with a little bit of an interesting twist. What do you think if you are talking about market consolidation? Which of your competitors would you be most afraid for? Like a little concerned, a brotherly concern. Like maybe you would want to look into what you're doing there.
If we look in the market, I look in this competitive market from two angles. One angle is really who becomes a real competitor for me, and who's maybe the candidate who buys my company. Yeah, because I have two private equity companies invested. And I think the Asian companies, they have tons of money. They want to come into this market, the European market and the US market. They're able to do that. They have tons of developers, products, good knowledge about monetization, and so on. And on the other side, Zynga for sure. Whatever happened with their stock price and whatever happened with their management team over the last months, they have tons of cash, and they have to do something. And it's not that they just sit on the cash and develop some other Farmville crappy games. I think they will do something really big, and they have to do that. I'm not really afraid of Zynga, but I definitely look at them.
Did you buy any Zynga shares?
No, for sure not.
But they're bargain right now. And if you're not afraid for the company, isn't this the time to invest all your good fortunes into Zynga shares? Maybe offer a trade.
The question is this the right time to invest in a gaming company? But
what you could say, is that Zynga is clearly not valued very highly at the moment.
That's true. It's one-time cash. Yeah.
So I think that looking at the market, for sure, Zynga is even though everybody's kind of enjoying to say ha 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 ha, they're going down. We always knew it. I don't know where that comes from, but people seem to be enjoying that. They've been very successful, right? And they have a lot of cash, and they're very strong, and they are very smart people, and they have a very good, nice approach, a data-driven approach to business, which I'm a little questioning whether everybody here is good enough at that science already. I think they're leading the pack there. I know that Bigpoint is good. Aeria focuses a lot on that as well. But this data-driven way of approaching things is interesting and strong. Interestingly, there's like a couple of companies that are making a lot of money in our markets that are not sitting here, and that I've never met often. And for example, World of Tanks, Wargaming. Mm-hmm. These guys, we should be scared. They rock, right? Where are they? Have you seen them?
Somewhere in Russia, I guess.
Somewhere in Russia, probably.
They have their German or European offices.
Of course.
Tom Puski, old industry veteran here in Germany, runs it.
He's there, but I think they are not as present in our heads as they should be.
I think they're overly present, to be honest. I think Riot, of course, and Wargaming are fantastic. It's super titles, and we all would love to have launched some similar thing in that period of time. Yet, Minsk people and all their great brothers from Moscow, they know how to party. So I guess we know very well who they are. And
they just come for one night, right?
Also, it's not fully so clear whether their adaptations to flying and shipping will be rocking the same way. Yet it's great, and I've been to the Minsk office, and I know them for a while.
Their growth was explosive. They've kind of blown us out of the water.
Yeah, and we said twice no to them when they wanted to give us the title to publish it in Europe, and we said no, that's too niche. So we know what we're talking about. It's
probably
great.
A mistake of ours, right?
We don't know what we're doing on licensing.
Sorry?
Probably a mistake of ours.
That could actually be true, but we shouldn't admit that now. Yeah. But it's true. These are in the specific, our client MMO side, it's these two which come to mind especially.
Zynga
That's
is
true.
the same, right? Zynga now comes up with innovative, because they have such a lot of pressure, they have to come up with new strategies. And what was their problem? Their problem was that they have casual players that are just not loyal at all. So they see, okay, what is going on with Kabam, for example, right? Kabam is also an interesting player here, right? Because they managed to turn a casual platform into a hardcore user acquisition space, and that Facebook. And now they are doing the same for mobile. I think like almost half of their revenues is coming from mobile right now. They're massive in this market. And still, they don't have a presence here, so probably we don't see them as much. Kabam, and Zynga is following their blueprint because they see, oh wow, so there's a lot of money to be made. Then the next business, because I think we're all competing for the same budget of time out there from everybody out there. What about casino? What about gambling? Zynga is looking into that, and Zynga will make a strong case in the UK now. with a partnership, they will learn and they will do it themselves. They will roll out aggressively. Interesting things. So hardcore gaming is coming to the casual space. That will be, and that is something that we also see with wargaming, right? Where we thought it's niche, it's not. League of Legends, very competitive gameplay, you know, still broad appeal. Zynga, Kabam.
I'm not afraid of Kabam, by the way, but that's a different story. One thing here is that many of those companies that they have venture capitalists invested in them. Wargaming, I don't think that they have venture capital in there. I don't know.
I think 100% founder-owned.
So those companies are really strong with a strong base on shareholders, and they can decide by themselves. That's really the companies we should look at. So I totally agree with Wargaming. That's a really interesting company. See what we're doing, because all the other companies who have venture capital, and I mentioned that. I have private equity companies in there. They have one interest, and that's just sell the company. And this is a consolidation. What's now going on? That's exactly the right time for them to look for opportunities.
Klaas, you're my last hope of really answering the question I actually asked. You're on the outside looking in. You were once infamous for stirring the pot. So if you look at all those big browser game companies, and if they tell them, if they tell you they're going to be around in 10 years, when do you look down into your coffee going, mm-hmm?
Okay, I won't give you any names.
Yeah. But you will describe it so everybody knows.
Mostly because I'm really not quite sure. I think that most of the companies who kind of led the pack in the beginning will somehow make it, will learn how to be more efficient, will learn how to develop better quality titles than they did in the past, and this includes Gameforge and Bigpoint and whatever. The reason is they have still a strong revenue coming in. They are still profitable. They have still cash around. They have the talent. They have the distribution deals. They have everything they need to kind of make this change. And as you probably saw in the discussion, everybody is aware of the change happening. You probably have just to look at your own books. But there will be a lot of companies who don't have the critical scale yet, like 20 people, 40 people, 100 people maybe. And those companies I'm afraid for. They have to find a niche, they have to focus on that, and otherwise they will be in rough waters.
All right. Since we are already at our, well, we should be finished, but we're not. So I want to open up the panel for questions from the audience just a little bit. And I hope this microphone will work. Does it? Yes, it does. So questions.
Toys.
I knew it.
I have a question to Heiko, because on his right side, it's someone who kind of mentioned that IP licensing might be the holy grail, and I have to wholeheartedly disagree, because our industry has gone through that phase twice and failed. If you license, you don't own your own game. And that's really dangerous. I don't think that's like a valid solution to the problem we have.
But let's not say license, let's call it IPs. But IPs will help you, and you know that from your work at Blue Byte, Ubisoft at the moment. And that's exactly what I think what we do. We use an IP like Game of Thrones, or Battlestar Galactica, or Ice Age, or whatever we have done so far. And that helps a lot to drive users, especially in the time where we really have high user acquisition costs. For a game like Battlestar Galactica, I pay less than half what I pay for a non-branded game. So for that, I'm more than willing to give a brand owner a revenue share. So we own the IP, we own the game, we own the source code. The only thing what we don't own is the name. And maybe you have to change some artworks if you have some issues with a brand owner. But for me, it's about brands that this really helps you, and in this case, helps us in user acquisition costs.
And very importantly, you own the user and the relationship to the user. So it's an ongoing question whether only the big whales with the super IPs will be ruling the game, or whether or not there's a chance to survive for those monsters which actually own all the users. I leave that to you two, or the future to decide.
Any questions, raise your hands, please, and I will come over. To explain the reaction you just saw, that was one of your speakers today, also who asked the last question. Toit Weidemann will be speaking later today.
Hi, Al Safar from Peak Games. let's talk about globally. As far as I know, lots of Asian companies now not just going to Europe, but coming to another countries, another regions like Middle East. And that's a huge market. So let's say Travian have a very good success there. What about the other companies? Are you thinking about that? Is that the niche that maybe you will get some extra money because there is not much competition, but you guys are not doing anything? As far as I know, Bigpoint closed it. Gameforge have 3-4 games, but didn't have anything new since 2 years. Only Travian doing something still. So what do you think?
We're making good money there, but yet we do much more money here in Europe. Still, we think it's an interesting market, and we will try to grow it, but it's not our first priority, that's admitted. And a quick comment on what you said regarding the Asians, which were coming here and then are coming to MENA. That's exactly how I would see that evaluation to have happened as well. And that is because we weren't so easy to be taken over and let go, although they had deep pockets. So they go somewhere else. I mean, the big guys can always come back, but at the moment the threat is not so huge other than they would buy someone. Here.
Thank you.
Thanks. One thing that was mentioned actually earlier by Pascal, which I definitely agree with earlier, is gambling, that there is actually great potential there. I know Zynga, social games based, yeah, that really fits quite well. How do you guys see that fitting into your models?
I totally agree. Gambling is definitely a big thing. The question is, that's a different business, you know, for also that. Maybe there's like overlapping with the user base we already have, who might also like to play gamble games, table games, and so on. So that's something what we definitely consider, and we are even already working on that. But it's nothing what we would run under the Bigpoint brand, because Bigpoint is really about gaming, and gambling is a different business from different perspectives.
Would you market that to those users though? Because there's
sure.
a lot of
that's the idea.
issues.
That's my idea. Leverage the user lifetime value through gambling elements in the games and an additional gambling platform.
I mean, the idea of gambling in games is not really new. Games are all about taking chances and winning or not winning. So the mechanisms were always there.
Yes, and it's built in the itemization, in the monetization of a lot of our games, of course. Yeah. But outspokenly, also as Gameforge, we would not want to embrace that at all. Obviously, there's money, loads of, but...
I think it's a very interesting market, and it's the pattern and the structures it follows is actually pretty similar to ours. We've been looking into that already like 2 years ago, and we have not moved so much on it yet because we see the complexity, especially on the legal side, and the casual gambling where there's no money to be really won. That's now taking off with Zynga Poker on mobile, for example. That's a very interesting trend that we kind of missed. We thought that it has to have a payoff, like a real, you know, that you can get your money back out of it. And this is where Zynga is now going. I think it's a very interesting thing. And for us, as leaders of companies, I think if we would go into gambling and set up the structure, it wouldn't be so far off for us. And that's the interesting thing. I think the organizations that we've built, they could support a gambling business.
But would our employees all be happy to work for that new company?
Why not?
I doubt that.
I know that gambling always has like a little bit of a shady reputation, but I do also believe that you can do it, you know, people are having a lot of fun with it, they're playing it, they're not, you know, you're not forcing people into it. And also then you have to say, okay, so then we have like gaming addicts as well. How, you know, would people be afraid of that? I don't think that we would.
No, I'm simply saying that this is the direction we have, I believe, grown our company to be with. And yes, our employees, they are happy to confront the insult that you're making people addicted to play. That's something all of our people really embrace, and we counter, and we're happy to counter that. But still, this giving people the alleged opportunity to win some money in cash out of what you're doing is a completely different thing. And in my former job, I have, of course, in Portals, been doing everything. I saw skill gaming come up, and betting, and lottery, and gambling. All of this you can advertise to your users. And if you really have this great portal and want to maximize the best in a big environment scale, it's a must to have these corporations build in and obviously get your revenues out of that. But if you're really concentrating on more being the gaming company, I believe it is indeed a very distinct crossing line. But that's a subjective
Maybe
opinion of mine.
one thing I can add to that. I think that especially our home market in Germany, we are opening up. So I know that there are things going on in certain parts of Germany where gambling will be more or less legal in the near future, or can be legal. So this will also change our attitude probably. For us, it's difficult as a company to just say, okay, we open up a company and be very addicted to that, and go, for example, to Malta, where this is possible. Now, I mean, it can be a cultural change, and maybe then we see opportunities, but I totally agree that that's, from a mental aspect, that's really different to what we're doing right now.
Gentlemen, we have 3 questions left. I ask you to be a bit more brief in your answers.
Okay. What do you think is more important, own the IP or own the user?
The user, for sure.
User.
Should be brief.
I agree.
Don't take it too literal.
Why don't you invite Ubisoft to the panel?
Yeah,
then,
it's a shame we don't have Ubisoft or Zenimax here, because I've heard Frank Matzke yesterday evening talking about the value of the Elder Scrolls IP.
Actually, sort of an add-on question to that. Do you actually own your users? I mean, do you own them, or have you rented them temporarily for your game? Because my understanding is that, and to put it in a friendly way, most of your users come for your product. They don't come for your platform, which means you don't own them. You actually own them as long as they play your product, and then they go to another product. Whether that's on your platform, that's a certain amount of skill on your end to put them from one product to the next product, obviously. But that's the great illusion Zynga had, that they own their users. They don't. They just have, they've managed to put them from left pocket to right pocket to the next pocket that they've opened.
But that's all you need.
Exactly. That's all you need, but it's a strategy that runs out, as we can see with Zynga as well.
But that's called CRM. Yeah, so it depends what kind of customer relationship management you do, and if you do a good one, then you can put every game to that. So I still think the user is more important. If you have a good CRM, if you have no channel to communicate to the user, of course, then the user data is very useless for you.
And the last one is over here.
It's Mark Robinson from Games Analytics. I was just wanting to go back to the skill games area. And agree with Heiko that gambling and gaming are different businesses, but skill games is an interesting area in the middle, and it's one potentially where the industry can solve its revenue issues right now. I wondered whether that should be a focus for you guys and for the industry going forward.
Honestly, I think if I can choose between gaming or gambling, I would or skill gaming, I would always go for gaming or gambling and never for skill gaming. I think that's a more boring business because there are not that many users in there. But not that much money you can generate. Because if you really want to play for money, you go for gambling as a user and not for skill gaming. I think skill gaming is something just what works in Europe, in Germany, whatever. Because gambling is not really allowed. Those companies who are now in the skill gaming business, like GameDuel.com or so, maybe those companies are even better prepared to go in gambling as soon as it's more legal than it's today.
I see, unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I'm sorry I can't take your question, Malte. Thank you to my panel. You've all been great. You have mostly not been avoiding questions. That is awesome. Thank you.